Yes, absolutely. I also, for myself personally, I have a hard stop at 5:45 that came up since we called this meeting. So at that point, the mayor will take over as chair. But let me call the meeting to order first before we get on with any official business. Mayor, are we good?
Yes.
Okay. So we are streaming on the city's YouTube channel. I'll call the Findlay City Council Strategic Planning Committee meeting of February 9th to order. And thank you all for being here. Do remember that we are being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, so try not to get a shadow banned if you can. And that's a dangerous thing, Denny. You got to know. I just got done watching a couple of videos from the Twitter committee on the House Twitter situation, and it was brutal. So let's not get shadow banned by YouTube. They're not under indictment yet. All right, we've got a lot to get done today, and again, thank you for coming and preparing for this meeting. We have online with us. We've got looks like Sarah and Shelby Oldenrod is with us. You can see, and there's a wave to Shelby and Sarah. And we're going to pick them up via the mayor's microphone. Is that correct?
We're going to give it a try. I may just
can.
have to repeat some things if you guys can't hear them. I apologize.
So they are in attendance.
And just make sure to use your microphone so that they can hear you, and they'll chat with me if they can't hear you when you're speaking.
Yeah, so yes, please make sure you use your microphone so that it's picked up on the stream also. So to start off the meeting, I would like to just quickly recap or remind everybody about where we've been quickly. We've gone through a lot of these drafts of our proposed strategic plan, and we've gone over them several times. We still got quite a ways to go yet. Our goal today is to try to get through some of this. We need to just continue to remember that as we have these discussions, we should keep our comments, number one, polite as always, but direct and to the point, and let's try to keep things moving as best we can. I know sometimes the conversations get difficult, but we also must remain or maintain a high level of decorum as we move forward. With that, Auditor Stasiak would like to bring up some old business, which goes back to the meeting that we had, and I can't remember the date, so I apologize, our last meeting, and has a couple of points that he'd like to bring up on changes that were made during that meeting.
Thank you, Chairman Wobser. I reviewed the personal recording that I keep for myself just to make sure we clarified everything, because a couple of things looked a little bit off. And what I'll do is, if it pleases the whole committee, I'll just run through these, and unless there's an objection, I'll submit the changes in bulk as a motion to approve if someone's willing to second, and then we'd have dispensed with it because there's only a few. They deal strictly with sections 1.5 and 1.6. The first thing I'll note is that 1.5B, there was discussion that evaluate and implement methods to increase zoning compliance and decrease abandoned property should be split. However, the draft shows that and decrease abandoned properties is still in the upper line. However, then we say evaluate and implement methods to decrease abandoned properties in the next line. So the and decrease abandoned properties in the first line should be stricken. Then under 1.5C, there was significant debate, and there was a motion and a vote to update the language of this one to say update city land use plan to help guide existing and future development and potential rezoning, working with Hancock County Commissioners and HRPC, or Hancock Regional Planning, to do so. Then moving to And excuse me, backing up to the first two, there was no conclusive vote on those, so part of the motion would be just that we accept it as split. And then under 1.6D, there was no vote accepting that language, although significant discussion. So part of the motion would be to accept that one. And then the last one, I believe here that I have, is 1.6E. There was significant discussion and a vote and an agreement to change the language to facilitate conversations with local landlords and agencies for helping find safe and affordable housing. And that was the last item that we did under that discussion. So I would submit those changes to paragraphs 1.5 and 1.6, including accepting the line items that were not voted on, so that we can move on and close those sections out from our last meeting.
Jim, would you repeat the change you had to I believe it was 1.6C? Was your last one?
1.6E.
E, and that was?
Facilitate conversation with the local landlords and agencies, and we struck such as Hancock Metropolitan Housing Authority, all the way to so facilitate conversations with local landlords and agencies for helping find safe and affordable housing, and that's it. That was the conclusion on that one.
Mr. Chairman, could I get clarification?
Yes, Mr. Hellman, ask your question.
Regarding that change that you're suggesting was brought up earlier, who then oversees that? If the Hancock Metropolitan Housing Authority is not going to be part of that, who is monitoring that or overseeing that or implementing that?
I think the idea was that the term agencies, that would include the Metropolitan Agency, the Metropolitan Housing Authority.
And that's exactly how the conversation evolved. It was just to genericize it.
So it does not exclude them. They would still be involved or could be involved in the process. They're just using the generic term agencies. So we have a motion on the table to accept those changes. Jim, would you go back, please? I missed, and Mayor, tell me if I missed the splitting of 1.5B and 1.5B2. I believe that was your very first one, Jim.
Yeah, it is the very first
one.
one.
And would you go and repeat that, please, for me?
Sure. So we have two different versions in the blue and black draft that was just 1.5 and 1.6. It says evaluate and implement methods to increase zoning compliance, and 1B5, 1.B.5, evaluate and implement methods to decrease abandoned properties. In the other drafts, it has the words "and decrease abandoned properties" in the first line, so it just needs stricken from the first line, and I think that was the intent.
I think it's just looking at a red line version.
Yes, I am
Okay.
looking at a red line
So
version.
it's clean. On
Okay.
the clean version, it's correct.
All right.
Did we get a clean version of what was discussed after the last meeting?
Yes, it was sent out the day after the meeting.
But it's actually that way in the clean version also, only on that line, and which was the reason I brought it up.
Do we have hard copies of that?
We do not, but I can try to bring it. Once we got through this, I was gonna try to bring up the document on the screen so that everybody can. But we only worked through section 1.5 and 1.6.
Right. There were no other
Chairman,
changes.
if we're not going to touch 1.5 and 1.6, I'd suggest that the auditors recommended changes be distributed in hard copy format, table it for now, and then we move on. Because there's so many things that have just been said without a copy of it. I mean, I personally, I don't know where we're at or what's being said. And then for ease of, and then we can move on to other items, and we're not talking about 1.5 and 1.6 today.
No,
I
this
would
is just
imagine.
cleaning up old
Well,
business.
So let's,
With respect, I know you weren't at the last meeting, Mr. Russell, and what I did was, so that it's clear for the public and for the committee, I personally keep a voice recording. These were minor changes where we had two lines where they were omitted from the draft that needed done. So under old business, I'm just asking that we correct this under old business so that
Yeah.
it reflects the discussion.
I think it's a reasonable request. I understand, Mr. Russell. I think we have just a few changes here. Mayor, are you in agreement? You were the letter note keeper of record that day. Are you in agreement with those changes?
So, yes, I am fine with the 1.5B and 1.5B5. We kind of added a couple since we were splitting them. I still disagree with 1.5C on adding the specificity of the commissioners, because the commissioners have no influence on the City of Findlay land use map. That is what the City of Findlay would like to see parcels in the City of Findlay utilized for, and if they, upon annexation, would come in, they do expand just beyond our boundaries to provide that. I don't think the commissioners have a role to play in it. I think that's the purpose of regional planning as a county entity. So I would be fine with specifying Hancock Regional Planning Commission, but not the commissioners. And then 1.6D, sure, fine with accepting that. And I'm fine with the modified language. I don't believe that was the determination of the committee, but I don't have any significant concern with it. And I will have Jacqueline go and make copies of the printout that I put together for today's meeting that has area for notes and votes.
Very
That
good.
may be beneficial.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. On 1.5C, that language was discussed, the mayor's points for the benefit of the public and the group were actually made, and there were a lot of points made, but that the record needs to reflect that the vote of the committee. So where the committee actually voted was that they update the city land use plan to help guide existing and future development and potential rezoning, working with Hancock County Commissioners and HRPC to do so. That language suggestion was actually the resolution proposed by you as the chairman, and it was voted on and accepted by the group.
I would, thank you, Jim, for that clarification. I tend to agree, though, that HRPC does incorporate or encapsulate the commissioners in their situation. So even taking out the commissioners and leaving in HRPC, that still accomplishes the common goal. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I was just going to say, my goal is just for the minutes to reflect under old business.
Understood.
Exactly
Very
what
good.
happened. So-
What I would propose then is a motion just to amend that to take out the commissioners and leave it as HRPC. Very good. Very
I
good.
would second your amended motion.
Thank you.
That is necessary.
So we've got yes, Mr. Russell.
I'd like to make a motion that these changes be submitted in paper, that items 1.5 and 1.6 be tabled for at this point in time until we can have the recommended changes put in paper, put in front of us for a vote.
I'll second that. I've got my notes here and they're just all, I've got some of what Jim has said, but not all of it. I'd like to see it on paper.
Very good. We've got a motion and a second to have these submitted in writing before they're approved. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay.
I would
Nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. We'll have that submitted in writing, and then we'll pick it up at the next meeting. Very good. Enough of old business. Let's move on to something new and interesting. Our main goal today was to start with the overall, each one of our individual goals. The mayor has passed out, I take it, Mayor, everybody has?
No, I'm gonna pull up, Jacqueline is getting copies for everybody, so if you guys wanna take notes, what I was planning to do was just pull it up on the screen so that you guys see the notes that I'm taking, so hopefully we can avoid any discrepancies moving forward. But you also get paper copies in a moment. I think, Jeff, if we could kind of address planning next, to start with.
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mayor, if you'd like to. I'm not sure exactly what we need to.
Well, I think previously you had planned on kind of talking about if we want them to stay the entire time or not, and what that means.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yes, so there's concerns on the time for Sarah and Shelby being involved. Sarah, what's your time frame, and Shelby, what are you looking at time-wise today?
Well, quite honestly, we're out of budget. Can you hear me okay? We're out of budget on this project and about 3 months past due, but we want to hang in there with you because we we know this is important work, and you know we know that this needs to be discussed through this group. But at this point, we don't have any budget left. We still have things that we need to do to help you package this up, and we want to be able to do that. I had submitted an amendment for some additional fee to the mayor back in December, which has some additional funds to help us move forward. We did do some extra things we tried to absorb within the original budget with the business survey and a few things towards the end. But I think just the extension of time and us sort of hanging in there, we would need some additional funds in order to continue helping you and kind of being with you. So I think that was what.
Very good.
You know, we can hang in here with you, but I think we need some
Understood, Sarah. Sarah,
of some additional funding that we could
I agree.
continue to help.
Sarah, do you remember what the original request was? Or at this point, since we're already in the middle of February, what is your sense of an amount that will get you through the next iteration of this process?
Yeah, so, you know, like I said, we're about 3 months, you know, past our contract period. We've hung in there. So we're about, you know, I want to say I just got billing $5,000 kind of in the hole at this point in order to be able to continue helping you and trying to absorb some of the stuff extra we did. If you want us to hang in there, you know, I outlined some of that stuff. It was about a $7,000 ask to be able to get us, you know, and I think that was really just getting us maybe through February. I'm not sure how long it will take you. I mean, I know this is important work and you've had multiple work sessions. So at this point, I don't have a good sense of maybe how many more work sessions it's going to take to kind of get through the whole document. If you think you need us for that, you know, we're happy to do what you all want us to do, and as long as we're being treated fairly and compensated, of course. But you know, there's a point at which you all need to take ownership over some of this work. We've facilitated a robust engagement process. We've shared with you what the community is interested in and set the sort of framework. But I think now's the work that comes with really figuring out that action level and making sure that you're still upholding those sentiments that the public had shared. So anyway, that original amendment back actually was beginning of January, was for an additional 7,000.
So Sarah, just for clarification, is the 7 in addition to the 5 to get you out of the hole? Or
that included, we're a little more in the hole now, but that included some overage. Yeah, that included some overage.
Councilwoman Warnicki.
That's fine. I'll answer to either one. I'm just curious if we would want to take a vote on this committee as to whether it's necessary for them to be here for these kind of work sessions where, I mean, it's my opinion that we don't, and not that you guys haven't been valuable with what you've done, but it strikes me as some of these meetings that we've had doing what we're going to be doing here tonight is wording, or I need one word here, and if I wouldn't think they'd want to sit through 3 hours of that. That's my opinion, and I guess I'm just wondering if, as a committee of the whole, what we think we want to do with that, because do we want to pay them to sit there? I mean, if it was valuable for them, but if we're just discussing wording in a lot of cases, I'm just throwing that up.
Thank you, Councilwoman Warnicki. Yes, we've had several people on this committee that have requested that they be here. It'd be nice if those two folks would speak up and ask and give reasons for them, for their asking for that engagement.
I would
Go right ahead.
I'd like to share a couple comments. First, I haven't seen an accounting at the time of Planning Next or any summaries of what they've done as a committee member, and I certainly didn't see the letter that was distributed with the additional ask of, what'd she say, $7,000?
Yeah, and I just put it up on the screen, and just so everybody's aware, that was shared with Councilman Wobser and myself. He was planning to bring it up at the last meeting, and we did not get to it, so it was not intentionally not shared with the committee. That's why we're bringing it up now.
When did this come in?
Early January, right? Maybe January 4th.
Yeah.
Okay. Part of my thoughts, part of my concern has been making sure this group, which is defined as not only the Strategic Planning Committee, but the steering committee for this process had reasonable and proper, necessary access to planning next at proper times. And what concerned me the most is we had many, many instances where decisions were made where this committee, in my opinion, should have had a role in those decisions, didn't get an opportunity to weigh in on their thoughts. So without seeing an accounting of planning next time, I don't know where it went, and who used it or how it was used, other than what I saw in
How
terms
does
of
that
public
change, Jim?
in terms of the public engagements.
How does
That being said, we put out an RFP and we received quotes, and we accepted a quote. We entered into an agreement, and I think at this point we may need to pause and look at that agreement. Have we fulfilled, and have they fulfilled their agreement, even though they're saying they filled the time component? Was it a time-based agreement, or was it a deliverable agreement? And I guess as part of that, each piece matters. So I guess the answer to the question is a little more detailed.
So I guess from my opinion, I'm happy to, pull the invoices and the documentation related to what has been paid to Planning Next and provide that to the group, as well as evaluate, their prior contract. I think what we need to decide now is, obviously they're over budget at this point in time, and I know we've talked about that a little bit a couple of times. So what we need to determine for today's meeting is going back to Councilwoman Warnicki's question, do we need them to sit through tonight's discussion where we are wordsmithing? If so, that's fine, then we're just all need to be aware that we will most likely owe them additional funds unless we can prove that they have not fulfilled their contract in some way. Otherwise, we can do that and then follow up and determine how we want to move forward and how we want to move with the contract.
Mr. Hellman?
I guess, excuse me, I would agree with some of the comments that the mayor made, and with Councilman Warnicki, that to have Planning Next sit through some of this laborious discussion of wordsmithing things and changing things around based on some comments that were made at the last meeting or wherever, is probably not beneficial to us, as much as I respect them and would like to have their opinion on it. But this could go on for quite some time. And I would say we true up with Planning Next and maybe put them on some kind of a retainer. And if we have questions or concerns about things, we get back to them and say, what about this? What about that? Items 2, 3, 4, 5, and let them kind of give us a response. But to have them sit through some of these painful discussions was probably not a good use of their time.
Mr. Stasiak?
I don't disagree with that either in terms of the laborious part and some of the individual tasks, discussions, and the wordsmithing and those types of things. I did, however, I had a fairly in-depth conversation with Chairman Wobser and a brief conversation with the mayor for some perspective on some things we might look at a little differently tonight. And we were going to talk about that under new business prior, I think at the chairman's pleasure, prior to getting into the tasks. So there are some areas where Planning Next input might be of some value. However, that being said, I don't know what they've been paid for and what they haven't been paid for. But what I can say is, I think at this point then, if we're talking about whether we put them on hold or whether we don't want to incur any more costs or whether they're going to sit on the sideline until their next step, I think it would behoove us to get a thorough description of what tasks are remaining, the order of those tasks, what tasks they will be involved in, and what the outstanding costs of those items would be. We've invested a significant amount of money in here, and you all know that, and it would be a huge disappointment to me to see us make a decision without having a complete understanding of the implications financially of the decisions we need to make. But going back to the point of the laborious part, I don't disagree with that either. There are parts that they're of value. particularly on the overriding goals and some of the wording and some of the public input. But there are also parts that, as Sarah wonderfully said, we need to take ownership of and work through and figure out.
Mr. Russell?
For tonight's meeting, I agree with Beth.
Just to make everybody, there were two people on this committee that requested that they be here. Both of those people have recanted that request at this point in time. So I'm going to make a motion that we allow the folks at Planning Next, after all the time that we spent trying to get them online, to go home at this point in time, and have a moved and seconded discussion. Mr. Stasiak.
As I mentioned, there is one item I'd like to discuss that I've discussed with you. Having made the motion, I'm going to assume you don't see the value in them being part of the discussion.
I didn't say that.
Well, I'm just
So
saying
you need to, if you think there's value in that, please say so right now before we take a vote.
I guess for the benefit of you folks, Jeff and I talked at detail about the value of having a couple of these organizations that we are specifically referring to in the task section of this document coming in and presenting to us, and the manner and method and way in which we do that. There might be some value to Planning Next being part of that brief discussion. I think there would be value to it, in my opinion. And the goal is not to get more tasks or more points. The goal is to make sure this body has a thorough understanding of those organizations that we're referring to in this document.
With that, I'll take and withdraw my motion at this point. I'm sorry, Mr. Russell, I missed your.
Is discussion of that on the agenda for tonight, or are we working through the document? If we're working through the document, I don't know that Planning Next needs to be there. If we're discussing about bringing other groups in to, if that's really the next item on the agenda, it's a different question.
I think it's, our agenda is such that we were working through these. This is part of working through those different items on our list. So I think it is something that needs to be discussed, albeit very briefly. And I think, quite frankly, the discussion would only take a few minutes, and we'll either have a yes or a no on the basic premise of the idea, and then we could let them go. It should not take us more than about 5 or 6 minutes. Yes,
So
Councilwoman.
I'd say let's leave that to 5 minutes, do that, and they can go. Amend your motion to that, and we'll vote for that.
Very good. With that, we'll take I'll give them all 6 minutes above that, and with that,
Sarah just started her clock.
I'll take everybody in favor of the motion of letting the folks go after 6 minutes, and we'll give that 6 minutes to Councilman Stasiak to make his case for this difference or change that he would like to make. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Mr. Stasiak, you've got your 6 minutes. Actually, 5.5, ready to go.
Clock is ticking. Well, everybody, what we had talked about at length, and the thought occurred to me that one of our challenges is no one of us serves on all the boards or all the organizations that are referenced. So certain ones have certain expertise. Mr. Russell certainly understands zoning and areas like that. The mayor has probably a wider understanding of a lot of the organizations than any of us. The Alliance, certainly, I have little to no understanding of, other than I pick up what we've picked up in the last few newsletters. My thought was for us to make an informed and uniform and proper analysis of these points here, so that we word them correctly and we make sure we know what we're supporting or not supporting, including or not including, because we've had no discussion about things that maybe have been missed here yet in these documents. We're simply editing what we have in our hands. That it might be worthwhile having a few organizations come in and limit their discussion to what I thought would be a reasonable period, say 20, 25 minutes, whatever the pleasure of the group is, for them to make a presentation of where they're at and where they're going and what they think we need to know as we're considering the strategic planning process and finalizing these documents. So I had initially sent a written request to Mr. Wobser to consider inviting the Alliance, the Hancock Park District.
Can you say them slowly so I can take notes?
Well, I'll give you a copy if you want. The Alliance, well, I can't say them slowly. I only got 5 minutes. The Hancock Park District, Regional Planning, the Hancock County Commissioners, at one point, our full city council, the what came out in an email the other day, the Be Healthy Now Hancock County Coalition, and the coalition to, I think it's the unsheltered, I'm probably, to assist the unsheltered. I don't know the name of that group. And any other group that this body feels would be appropriate. Again, the purpose is this. We are doing a community-wide strategic plan that is emphasized on government functions. We are going to refer and encourage and support a lot of things that we don't have full exposure to. And it would be nice as a committee and for us to make an informed decision, all from the same information if we don't have it, or complete information. And who better than those groups to come in and speak to us prior to us getting down into each detail item, saying yes or no, or changing the wording, where they come in for a limited time. So if it's, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups. So if you had 8 or even 10 groups, you give them 20 or 25 minutes. You're talking at max, you're adding 5 hours to the process. That's 2 meetings. They present, and then once they present, you've had a chance to hear what they're doing. They get to buy into what we're doing and explain what they're doing, and we get to ask them a few questions to make sure we have proper understanding. And we're creating that opportunity, and we're making sure we let the community know we've done our due diligence, that before we've pushed this document towards any specific organization, group, or other organizations, that we've actually talked and have a good understanding of where those organizations are going. So that was my thought, Sarah. I'm almost, or you're almost out of time. They're going to cut you off. What do you think?
Yeah, I got I'm clocking at 3 minutes here. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We did a similar kind of community endorsement process out, in Overland Park, and it was very successful. I think a listening and learning kind of opportunity where you all can learn a little bit about what these organizations are doing. They can understand where the partnership opportunities are with the city is always a good thing. I think, there's a lot, like anything we're doing out in the world these days that involves partnerships and collaboration. That's sort of the way of the future. There's not this sort of siloed thing. Everybody got their purview, everybody's got their focus, but you can leverage a lot of those relationships if you bring them along and like you said, get the buy-in. So I think I would be very clear, with them about what the intent is and what your purpose is, and make it, kind of a two-way listening and learning piece. But I think there's no harm in that. I think that's a good idea to get the folks that are going to help implement this on some of the partner, on some of the collaboration pieces or partner pieces, to be on board and make sure there's alignment and make sure that everybody understands what is intended, in each of these actions in the strategic plan. So I think I don't have any issue with that. I think that could be beneficial
Okay, if I say something else.
for the process and for the group.
Auditor Stasiak.
Sarah, thank you. And to that point, and for the clarification of the committee, I wanted to make sure you understand. Again, in speaking with Councilman Wobser, I wanted to limit it to, like, whether it be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you folks are comfortable, some Q&A maybe at the end if you'd like it, but just have those groups come in. Here's who we are. Here's our direction where we're going. It's important that you understand that as you do your strategic process. And here's some places we hope, they can say whatever they want. Here's some places we hope we overlap. Here, we hope you stay the heck out of our business, whatever they want to say. But I really think it's important, particularly with some of these organizations and a few more you people are thinking of that I haven't even thought of, that we get them in here. And that's my pitch.
Yeah, I would caution you to be if you're going to offer this to certain organizations, that you're thinking about the optics of that, right? I think you have to kind of open that up and make sure that everybody has a chance who might have a role or might make sense. So I think I would spend some time with the group to really think about. You threw some out there may be some others, but I think I would just want to make sure you're being comprehensive, I guess, in the the opportunity for that. Yep. Sorry.
Mayor Murin.
No, it's for Jeff, just because I realize I keep just jumping in, so because I'm focused on you guys. A couple of thoughts. So the auditor mentioned this to me earlier today, and overall, I agree. I think we don't work in a silo. We need to partner with these other organizations. one thing I shared with him is that I think that we should try to get it scheduled sooner rather than later. I feel like we keep losing momentum by spreading our meetings out so far. And I think if we start having really good discussion and working through things, and then we say, okay, we're done for today, and we schedule a meeting from a month from now, and I recognize we're all busy and we had the holidays, but that we kind of need to like buckle down and, you know, get into the meat and potatoes. I would say that I think we need to be, I don't want to say that we're being selective about I like your list. I think that's a great start. I don't think, we need to find the balance, because I also don't want it to be open to everybody. I know we had this conversation early on about like, this is going to sound hard, like we don't need every church to come tell us what their strategic plan is for 10 years. So I think going through and identifying, and this seems like a great start, the specific the entities, a lot of which have governmental interaction, that we would invite and keep it specific. And then I think, you know, we reiterate to others, here is our draft. If you have, again, specific impact, which we've been doing over the last couple of months, which we did with the website, again, if you have specific areas that you think impact your organization, reach out and provide feedback. I think this could be beneficial, but I think just making sure that it is not a free-for-all. The other item that I brought up to the auditor, which I think Sarah probably would be best for you all to provide feedback on, is now the right time, or should we work through the plan a little bit more refining? Because if there's something in there that the committee says, no, we don't want that in there, does it make sense for them to potentially provide feedback on that if it's not something that so should it be now, and we work with them and then refine further? And obviously we're going to refine further again, but
Wait until Sarah answers.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think my initial thought is that
We are paying her.
I wouldn't want you all to put forth something with a group outside that you're not comfortable with. You know, if there's something you really need to work through. So I think you all need to continue working through and make sure that you've got. Now, if there's some actions that are maybe, you're not all in agreement on them, maybe some, but there aren't black and white ones. Maybe you leave it in. You say, we're going to wait till we get through this meeting with whatever group, because that might help us decide. I think there's some merit in that. But I would sort of continue on your path to get through, to make sure that you're comfortable at the action level, because that's what you're going to be some of those things are going to be what they're at that level. And I wouldn't want you going out with some of these groups with things that then you change later and they're like, hey, well, what happened to that? We were part of that, or we were going to, help with that or partner with that. So I do think that that's something that you all should think about a little bit. And it might be worth continuing on your current path and try to capture that momentum so you can get through and get a cleaned up version that you're comfortable with, that then you start meeting with these groups. And I agree, Mary, you don't want it to be a free fall, but have a rationale, right? Have a method for why you chose certain groups, because if groups feel like they're left out, that might be an issue. So you just need to have a metric for why certain groups. And I think you're right, they're ones that already are having intergovernmental relationships, or already have partnerships established. Makes a lot of sense. And others, there's again ways they can get involved and read the plan and provide feedback. So that makes sense.
Jim.
Sarah, one of the things Jeff and I talked about was, for example, in tonight, hit the ones, twos, threes, like the 2.1, 2.2, 2.3s, but not the A, B, C's, D's, E's, and F's before they come in. In other words, if we're in agreement on the greater goals and the greater objectives, one of the things we haven't been able to enable is this has become a edit the document in front of us discussion. There's been no opening for adding points that we feel are missing, with the exception of a couple drafts have showed up where there's been some things added that weren't discussed by the committee as a whole. And the thought was, in proposing this, was by getting through the main 1, 2, 3 through 8 now, and the headers under those, we leave the individual tasks and objectives under the A's, B's, and C's until after these groups come in, so that we have perspective from those organizations in reviewing those. So I see merit to both sides, but I feel that if we're going to truly say to the community, we were considerate in our evaluation and create buy-in from the community for what we're doing, and also to present that we've done our homework. I don't think it would be good to finalize this or make this a final draft before they come in. I think we should stop at that other point, but that's my take. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so, okay, I think that could work. You bring them in to get alignment on the goals and the objective level, right? And then maybe in that conversation, again, I know you're limiting, you might have them each in for just 25 or 30 minutes, but I think, and that's an opportunity to, because you got to get to the action level, and I think they can help with that. Maybe that's one of the questions, what specific strategies, actions, policies, programs are you doing right now that kind of, that helps support that objective, right? And that would help you decide if there's something that they are doing that you want to incorporate, or there's some alignment there. You say, oh, okay, they're working on something, we have something there, there's some cross-section of self-interest. So I think that's fine. I think I think one thing you have to be really careful about is just, there was a public process, the community was, involved, it was a robust engagement process. And so again, the goals and the objectives level, I think getting alignment with those groups is good, but we don't want to lose sight of, if you get in there and you start seeing that there's not alignment, let's just say, you got to still stay true to the community. You got to find a way to still stay true to the community engagement pieces of it. So I think you have to figure out if the purpose of these is to bring them in to share the goals and objectives and then talk about that action level with them, kind of brainstorm, collab a little bit with them. And you've got some things you guys are thinking about, they may have some things, and then you finalize that after those meetings, because to your point, Jim, you're going to learn something, from that. And that could help inform that action level detail. So I think that could work.
Thank you, Sarah.
I just think it'd be really, really clear about what the intent is and how you facilitate those conversations with those
Thank you,
groups.
Sarah.
One last comment.
One last quick comment,
Yeah,
please.
one last comment. I appreciate your last sentence because I want to be clear with the committee. The point was to educate and inform, not solicit more letters for our document to
Yeah.
review. In other words, get us as a committee informed and show the community we've done our due diligence with these organizations or groups that we're referring to.
All right, very good. So any other questions for planning next? Thank you. Sarah, we're well past our 6 minutes, and I would leave you, before you take off, please, would you do a recap of your expenses that you're going to need for us going forward, kind of revise the letter from January for us, and also along with that would be the ancillary document of our completion document, things that are still left on our quote-unquote to-do list to get us to a final document, and then obviously that'll follow along with the potential expense of getting there.
Yep, I will. I will go through, we have completed everything in the scope document except for the finalizing the plan piece, and we've had to pause on that. We got part of that done. We waited, but we didn't want to take that too far until we saw how the action agenda, because they inform each other. We don't want them to not be in alignment. So we've paused on some of that work. So I will revise this, and I will also include a sort of kind of checklist or rundown audit of the scope document about what all scope items are done and which ones are outstanding due to the extended time. So yeah,
Thank you.
I'll do that.
Very good. And with that, we will excuse you all. Thank you for coming, and we will continue to work here. Have a nice evening.
All right. Good luck, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Okay. With that, I would like to, we've got more or less an idea on the floor of inviting in a group, series of folks to have quick meetings with us to give their intent. I'd like Mr. Stasiak put that in form of a motion, please, so we can vote on it.
Thanks for the request. So I would move that in order to get us up to speed on the education we need to have to be informed as we move through the individual tasks or it would be the third level of this document, that we bring in organizations pertinent to the document, including but not limited to the Alliance, Hancock Park District, Hancock Regional Planning, the commissioners, City Council itself, the Be Healthy Now, Hancock County Coalition, the Coalition of the Unsheltered, and any other organizations this body deems appropriate for short presentations on who they are, where they're going, and what we need to know in thinking about their organization as we do our City of Findlay strategic plan moving forward. Did I say that right? I know Christina got it. You got it all right, Christina.
There's a motion on the table. Very good. I will second that motion. I think that, and call for discussion. I think there's some value there. Though, Jim, I would probably take City Council out of that list. They will have plenty of time to vet through this when they have to approve it, and they can give their comments then. And so that would be the only one that I would take off of that list. All in favor of going down that path and getting that done in a very succinct manner, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes, and we'll work that direction and timing, and I'm sure Mr. Stasiak will help us get those groups online to get them here, since it was his motion.
And to make sure we don't take too long, I promised Councilman Wobser I would bring my sleeping bag if you guys need me to stay over and
There
do
you
extra
go.
work.
All right. So with that, in front of you, Jacqueline has given you a document that has notes, places for notes and votes. And I think this is a great document, and please keep this around, because on the initial first couple of pages, we have all of the high-level items, and gives a chance for us to record the notes that go into this, because there have been people who said that they don't know what's going on with us, and so we're going to make sure that that comes to an abrupt end, so that there's no question as to what this committee is doing, and there's no backroom smoke-filled agendas being played out. So with that, so keep this document, because we're going to start working our way through this, and my guess is we won't not get through it today between now and 6 o'clock, but we will use this going forward. I think it's a really good piece for us to be able to do that and record votes, and we will vote on each one of these items as we move forward. So with that, any other comments before we move forward? Very good. We're going to start with community vision. Okay. Community vision, the highest level and therefore most general expression of the community's future, reflects the community's goals. This is our vision statement. Am I correct here, Mayor? I'm sorry, I'm getting caught up here.
Yep, the City of Findlay government aspires to be a best-in-class city that leads in opportunities and innovation by welcoming new people, businesses, and ideas while staying true to our people, our values, and small city character. This was last modified following our December 20th meeting, where the auditor, and I apologize, I incorporated the change. I know we discussed it previously, and so what we would like today is if there are any other changes. Otherwise, we would like to finalize this component of the plan. Well,
Comments?
finalize for a final, or what did we say? You said final draft earlier, Jim, so we evidently can use final draft as an option now, as a draft, but move this forward in the version that would hopefully eventually go to the public.
Comments or suggestions on this? The motion to approve as written,
Second?
second by the mayor. All those in favor of the vision statement as it stands on this piece of paper signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. And here we are on, what's the date? The 9th of February, when we have approved a vision statement. How much did that cost us, Jim?
I think we've been
I
pretty
don't know.
good
I
on the
haven't seen
vision
an
statement for
itemization
a
of the
while.
bill.
Well, we know we're out of money, so we spent 100 and whatever, so that was good. Moving on, page 2, on the back of that. Values. This is so we start into our values. Mayor, you want to take over here, please?
Yes, so these have been consistent for the last probably 4 or 5 versions. They continue to be the people of Findlay value, small city character, or small,
Move to approve as written.
okay. I'm gonna save my voice.
There's a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Greeno. And by the way, Jacqueline is taking all these notes, so we'll make sure that she gets them. Thank you, Jacqueline. Discussion, Mr. Hellman.
Not discussion, just as an aside for an explanation, is there a reason that small city charm is underlined, even though it's number 1?
It most likely will not be underlined. I think it was because that was the one value that we changed throughout this process. It originally read small city character, and they changed it to charm.
Yeah, I think it was a change from the last time. So it will be not underlined in the final
I
document.
just didn't know if there was something special there, that's all.
Well, it
Thank
is
you.
special. It's a
It
small
is.
city. It's charming. Yes, Mr. Stasiak.
I'd like to make a comment here, and I think it's important that we take very seriously each one of these items and we don't give the appearance to the public, particularly since we're online, that we're belittling the consideration of them. And I'm not saying that we are, but I'm saying appearances are important, and expediency should not be more important than thoroughness, correctness, and creating this best-in-class, world-class, whatever you want to call it, class document. I think this is a very, very important step, and I think it's going to reflect on us and the community for years to come. And I would encourage this body not to take that lightly, not to rush it, and not to give the appearance that we're rushing it for expediency.
I would appreciate your comments, Auditor, but at the same time, I would remind everybody online who watches this and takes the opportunity to watch this that we have spent hours and many, many hours of debating all of these topics ad nauseum. So this is, nothing of this has been taken lightly whatsoever, and we have spent quite a bit of time coming to the point where we're having a chance to talk about these today. So certainly appreciate your comments, but I would put that as a retort. Comments about any
the
changes?
question.
Do I have a motion to approve? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's already been moved, and I'm calling the question.
All in favor of the values as they stand, signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes. On to organizational mission. Mayor?
So again, no changes here. These have been consistent for the last 6 or 8 months. So a statement used by the organization to explain simple and concise terms, its purpose for being. We serve all of our residents, businesses, and institutions so they can thrive. In collaboration with our partners, we are dedicated to providing exceptional municipal services, which provide the highest quality of community with amenities and opportunities available to all ages and abilities, responds to the needs and desires of our current as well as future residents, protects sense of place in downtown and neighborhoods as the heartbeat of a complete community where we live, work, play, and shop, are thoughtful and transparent in our deliberations, communications, and utilization of all resources, and I would motion to approve as written.
Second by Mr. Greeno. Discussion. Mr. Stasiak.
In looking at this and then looking at some of the other things that we're openly promoting, we have a Convention and Visitors Bureau. And one thing that has been omitted from this organizational mission is anything regarding, we cover the community, we cover our businesses, we cover institutions, things like that, but we don't talk about visitors. We don't talk about people who are coming here. And do we have a role as a government organization in that? Do you want that mentioned here?
I would suggest that number 1 covers that, provide the highest quality community with amenities and opportunities available to all ages and abilities. I think that, in my mind, would encompass visitors also, anybody that comes to our community.
No, it says we serve all our residents, businesses, and institutions so as they can thrive. And this is our organizational mission. In collaboration with our partners, we are dedicated to providing exceptional municipal services. And I think all that is wonderful. And I'm fine, I just bring it up for a point of discussion because I don't know anywhere in these documents where we say the word visitor.
So,
I was going to say, we're going to have the Alliance come in and speak to us. So the Alliance, part of that is Visitors Bureau.
Yeah, I
They
think,
will have
you
their
know,
opportunity to speak their 10 minutes worth. So,
yeah, well, I think we have talked about that in a couple of different places within the document. I'm fine with amending we serve all of our residents, businesses, visitors, and institutions so they can thrive. I think that's perfectly fine, but I do also think that it's addressed in a couple of different areas throughout the document.
well, and I would also go back, I appreciate that, Mayor, but at the same time, remember, Auditor Stasiak, you are the one who wants to make sure that this is a government-focused thing. With all due respect, we serve our taxpayer base first.
That's an interesting comment, because half of the people in our town, as we're speaking right now, are here from other communities. They're either working or passing through the community. They get the same protections of police, fire, streets, water, sewer, depending where they're going. I appreciate, Mayor, your gesture of being willing to put it in there. And again, I bring it up for suggestion. Are visitors important enough to us that we want them in there as part of our mission? Are we serving as well the visitors that are coming to this community? Do we? Some communities, we're not a tourist destination per se, but some communities, that's all they do. And I simply, again, I'm bringing it up for discussion. So I appreciate the debate, and I'm open-minded to some of the different opinions on it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Beth. I was just going to say, in Goal 1, we specifically address for those who are visiting.
Okay. Beth?
I would just say that was the exact thought, Jeff, that you mentioned that was running through my mind. Was last time we heard quite a bit about whether things were a government function. And I don't know, my first thought might be that being not a tourist city, are we here to serve visitors? But anyway, that was my thought also.
Yeah. Understood. I guess, Auditor Stasiak, if you had a specific amendment to this, we would entertain it. Otherwise,
I guess I would follow up on the mayor's suggestion. If we put in there, we serve all our residents, businesses, institutions, and visitors, or visitors and institutions. A couple people haven't commented. It would be interesting to get your perspective on that change if we inserted that word here.
Mr. Howland,
Personally, I don't think it makes any difference, to be honest with you.
there we go.
I mean, our guests are and visitors are our guests and visitors, and I think it's understood.
Very good. Was that a motion, Jim, or not?
I did not make a motion.
Very
I
good.
think there's a motion to accept it, and I did not make
Yes.
a motion to amend.
Thank you. With that, we'll call for a vote for the wording as it stands with no amendments. All those in favor of the organizational mission signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Organizational statement is approved. Moving on to page 3. These are our goals. Mayor, you want to take over again, please?
Yes, so what I have here is each of the goals, I pulled them into one big area, and I think there are 2 main points we need to discuss before we take a vote on each of them, if I may, because I had added in kind of 2 optional, like, recommendations on new ones. So I modified, we added in a safe community, which obviously was a key one we talked about. That wasn't specifically strong out of the public sentiment, but obviously something that's a key foundational service of the city of Findlay. That section would include, policing, fire, emergency response, as well as water quality, some of those items that go back to the more operational items. So what I would like to recommend is that we look at combining a responsible city government, because it had very little objectives in it once we created the safe community, and combine it with a well-run city government. So I think that we can easily incorporate, and I apologize, here, what I'll do is look at this.
I concur. If that was a motion, I'll second.
I am going to motion with recommending specific language to make it even cleaner. So let me come up. Because I think a responsible city government ties back to a well-run city government. So I would recommend that the language be a well-run city government that is transparent, easy to engage with, and prioritizes its people.
Is
And
that written up there, that
No.
we can see it?
And that
But I can.
is, and that is in lieu of a responsible city government?
That would combine, yes, a responsible city government and a well-run city organization. It would
I'm lost.
culminate the two of them. A
I'm lost.
well-run.
Where is the well-run?
So if you go to the next page, it's on page 4.
Can we refer to numbers, the actual objective numbers?
Well, yes, so objectives, that was one of the ones that we added. So currently, a responsible city government is goal 4. And then the well-run city government was added to the end and is,
Now I got it.
which is one of the reasons I took the numbers off when I, just in that front section.
Hang on. She's asking for an amendment. So we have a motion online to
And then 7, which was one of the new ones that had been added
replace responsible city government with, Mayor, would you,
on page 20.
have,
yes.
can you remember your language one more
Yes, I know you guys keep
time?
asking me lots of things. A well-run city government, do you have it written out for me? Run city government that is transparent,
Easy to engage with. Maybe not kept classified.
That is absolutely not true. We are on page 3. That's what I announced before we started this section of the conversation. We are on page 3.
Which page?
Page 3 of
document
of the
document.
document that we have given you.
Yep, so my motion was to combine previous goal 4 and the new goal 7, well-run government and a transparent government. And it would be a well-run city government that is transparent, easy to engage with,
Same
and
thing.
prioritizes its people. And I believe Councilman Russell seconded it. Was that
And then
correct?
you want, I'm sorry.
Discussion,
Then
go
you
ahead.
want to move that to under an attractive place to live?
No, that is its own goal at the highest level. So our goals, which are on page 3 and 4,
Right.
are currently an attractive place, an active community, a connected city, a responsible city government, a
Right.
caring community, a thriving business environment, a safe community, and then a well-run city organization. And what I am proposing is that instead of having both a responsible city government goal and a well-run city organization goal, that we would be able to combine those two, because a well-run city organization was primarily focused on communication to the public and that city citizen academy. And then the goal 7, a well-run city organization, was focused on kind of the operational items and still some kind of communication items. So I feel like we can roll them all into under one goal, maintaining their various objectives. Does that make sense?
I was confused about the move to goal 2.
Yeah.
We're not making any change to goal 2.
Yeah, so take that out of your notes,
Okay, but
Mayor.
it says that right
Oh.
there.
Okay, so make this number 1. So this was, if you remember, when I made some of the modifications, I just recommended, which is why right now I just have the goals listed out in no particular order. One of the things we heard from the public was, oh, you're prioritizing an attractive place, you're prioritizing connected, but safety and core government services really
Those are at
are
the
the
bottom.
priority. So I would recommend that eventually, when we develop and finalize the goals, that we would reorder those to have safe community and a well-run government higher up, and then move down attractive, connected, those types of items. Sorry.
Okay. I don't know if I have to raise my hand every time I talk, because that would have been my next comment, because if these were in order, I didn't like the idea that if you moved that to 2, which is what I thought you were doing, that safe community was gonna be on the bottom. I just don't think that looks
No.
well. So I won't mention that.
Nope, you're good.
Nope, that's
So,
good.
so using the numbering on the current draft, not the document that went around, 4 would go away. And a well-run city, or would 4 become a well-run city government that is transparent and easy to engage with its prioritizes people?
So
this
a
really won't be
responsible
here.
city government,
That's number 4, and then you have a number 7.
yep, so those would be combined.
It's
And where would they
sensitive, what she's
sit?
talking
In the
We have not
existing?
We haven't
determined,
gotten
we
that
have
far
not
yet.
determined a specific,
So,
order.
And 4, the header of 4 is going to be combined with the well-run city. Okay, so you're combining these
Right.
2.
But it's okay.
Is everybody understanding of what the motion is?
Yes.
Combining those 2. We have not ordered these yet. That'll be a separate 3-day discussion later on. So, any other
So-
discussion on this?
So let's read the whole thing. So now how
yep,
does it read?
a well-run
there.
city government that is transparent, easy to engage with, and prioritizes its people.
Okay, and then under 7, it said, where employees are valued to have the resources needed to serve the public with exceptional service, advanced mission, vision, strategies, and values of the community. Are those being paired off or dropped completely?
So I had just drafted that up after reading a couple of other ones, and I thought it was a little too wordy. I think where we really achieve acknowledging those items as important to our organization is in the objectives. And so I think by it prioritizes its people and the engaging, that is where then you address the technology components, the how we support our employees components. So I think by saying we prioritize its people, then you can build out objectives that support that statement.
Okay, and following up with that, is people employees or citizens?
Oh, that's a great question. Both. But we can define that further.
I think it should be clearer, yeah. That's my opinion. I don't know what the group thinks.
Yeah, because when I, talk about transparency and engagement, that really applies to both internal and external, as well as, when I was talking about prioritizes its people, I was thinking of employees, but obviously we prioritize our citizens.
How about we just vote on it at the high level to combine it, and then ask the mayor and Jeff to come up with wording that we can look at our next meeting? But at this point in time, we just talk about combining well-run city government and responsible city under one goal.
I guess my comment to that would be, this is a working session. And we've talked
Yeah,
that we
but
want to
the-
get through.
My comment to that is that if we try to have every single person write this document like this, we will be here until the Brian Bauman presidential administration. And at some point in time, we have to make progress. And so the way to create a document isn't to have 8 people edit at one time. It's to have 2 people present something and then make a vote on it.
With respect, I disagree completely, because you're asking me to vote on combining 2 terms where one of the or 2 sentences, 2 different ideas, where one of the particular ideas isn't defined as to what we're talking about with regard to people. Nobody else has had a chance to comment. And I think, again, sacrificing thoroughness for expediency is not the way to do a strategic plan. And that's my opinion, and I'm going to stand by that opinion throughout this entire process. Alls I asked was, if we're talking about people and community, let's just get that in there. Let's get it clarified so we know what the heck we're looking at.
I'd make a motion that people be changed to employees and citizens. All in favor of, well, we're going to vote on this one first. So, all in favor of employees and citizens replacing people signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay. I just thought it was good before.
Very good. So, we are now citizens and people, or whatever we are.
Yeah, which makes-
Employees and citizens, Jesus.
My God, you
My
changed it.
apologies.
Get it right.
Okay, with that, let's go back to the original motion of approving this as amended. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we will take the vote of this. Everyone in favor of the way it stands on the screen, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. We have combined those two. We will talk about the ordering of these at a different date. Although I think it definitely needs to be reordered. I think those points were well taken. All right. Do we need to start back at the top of the page, Mayor?
Yes. So going back to goal number 1, as currently presented, an attractive place to live, work, raise a family, learn, run a business, play, explore, and visit. Again, these is the same language that has been before us for a number of iterations. And I would make that in a form of a motion to approve an attractive place.
Second that motion. Discussion. Mr. Hellman.
No, I was second.
Thank you.
A little slow getting my hand.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of number 1, an attractive place, the way it stands, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. And we're on to number 2, an active community.
An active community with a wide variety of amenities, parks, and recreation opportunities for people of all abilities. Again, has been the same iteration for quite a while. I think the original one did not have of all abilities, and we chose to add that in, recognizing our various demographics. And I
Move
would.
to approve.
Thank you. I will second. Well, no, we'll let Beth do it. Doesn't need to be my name in all of it.
We have a motion and a second on to keep the wording as it stands. Discussion.
So that's the original number 2 then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on one second. Thank you.
All right.
I think it was all back in the very first part of the document.
I'll call question.
With that, all those in favor of an active community as it stands signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
All right, next, a connected city where people are linked to destinations and each other in a variety of ways. Again, for the public's knowledge, this has been in our last probably 5 iterations, and I would motion to accept the language as presented.
Do you have a second? Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of a connected city as the way it stands signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously.
I don't either.
All right, and then we will skip a responsible city government, given our initial discussion. So moving on to a caring community that supports all community members and looks for opportunities to strengthen community bonds.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, second by
Yeah, I'll second that.
Ms. Warnicki. Discussion. Still have a question, Beth?
I wanted to go back a second, but maybe I can just talk to somebody about it later, so I'm good.
Any discussion? Seeing as none,
Excuse me. Yeah, I do have a question. In light of this being a government plan, so we're saying, is the goal of the Findlay city government to what a caring community? In other words, again, let's talk about it being a government function, and we want to support all community members and look for opportunities to strengthen the community bonds. But the wording of this, is so if we put in front of it, as we discussed at the last meeting, there's going to be an entry paragraph that says basically, these are the goals, these are objectives. So it's an objective of the city of Findlay's government, a caring community that supports what? To be a caring community, to create it. What? I don't think we've addressed this as a city goal. I think it's a generic statement at this point.
So I think, again, these are broad statements, and we've heard very clearly, in my opinion, from the public that they felt that we needed to have a caring community where people felt that they could belong. Though we recognize that city government does not provide social services in many, instances, when you look at the objectives, I think it helps clarify what we mean by this. And so for example, yep, I'm gonna make sure, okay. So, and page 15 is where this begins. And some of the objectives are support the coalitions and their work to address social service needs of the community, e.g. addiction, mental health, healthcare, and homelessness. 5.2, support a culture of community belonging, intergenerational diversity, equity, inclusion. And again, as you get down into it, we can talk about the different things, but some of them were intergenerational programs for seniors and youth, neighborhood block watch parties, things to just help bring people together for civil dialogue, spring cleanup days, AARP, age-friendly community. Those were the two that I think, so right now we just have 2 objectives under that, and I think we previously had some others that were removed because we didn't feel like they were kind of outside of the bounds of government.
So how could this be reworded to fit into that so it makes a little more sense
It,
from a technical perspective?
Beth?
I would just say it doesn't start out any different than the others. It says a caring community, a connected city, an active community, an attractive place. I would vote and say I think it's fine as it stands.
But my question is, what is our role with regard to a caring committee? If it's just that we support the community members and look for opportunities to strengthen community bonds, us looking for opportunities to strengthen community bonds, what does that mean? What your city government looking for those opportunities?
I would
So-
suggest that that's, I'm sorry, Jim, finish your thought?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. This is, if this is a government strategic plan with a government objective, I don't understand the way this is written. How can we rewrite this? I'm not saying take it out. I'm not arguing that it's not good. I'm saying I don't understand the way this is written, how this pertains to Findlay City's government.
I think this is the section where the majority of the people that you want to bring in and interview fit under. This would,
I don't know
Any
that
other
that's true,
concerns?
but I understand what you're saying.
yeah, I think this is kind of the generic, you were talking about homelessness, that's in it. This is all kind of compassed in here.
No, I'm talking about organizations. Those are 2 different things, but I guess.
No, but you were talking about the organization that deals with the unsheltered. And that's where this would come in, is this goal.
So in terms of our day-to-day business, so you as a councilman, me as auditor, the mayor, we say here, a caring community that supports all community members and looks for opportunities to strengthen community bonds. What are we saying the role of city government is? If someone was bringing a piece of legislation to you for consideration that fell under this higher level objective, how could this be written so it would make sense? That's all I'm saying.
Understand the point, but I go back to what Councilwoman Warnick had said, a connected city. How does that go to what a government entity does? We have to look to the details that come underneath it. That would be the bullet points that would be specific as to the things that we would do as a government that affects this overall common goal.
I think that's a great example because we do have a direct role in creating a connected city technically. For example, we talk in our engineering meetings about making sure we're oversizing lines and accommodating fiber optics, and we always have done that with communication methods or whatnot.
Agreed.
This is not one that's as defined or as clear with regard to our role. So I guess I'm encouraging this group to take a moment.
Mayor.
Well, Councilman Russell had his hand up prior to
Oh,
mine.
I'm sorry. Councilman Russell.
In the community input, I thought that this, we received a lot of comment, this area received a lot of oxygen.
Yeah.
This wording has not changed in any of our documents. There might not be direct programs that we start, but they are things that we can support through ancillary efforts, be it the providing police service for events, or helping work in collaboration with the senior center on or days of caring and things to that effect. It's a general aspirational goal. It's been here since the beginning, comfortable with it, and would support its language as currently written.
Mayor.
So I see the auditor's viewpoint, and so I am trying to wordsmith on the fly, and really, we should invite an English professor to these meetings to help us out. I know a couple good ones if we needed them. Because I understand what you're trying to say, Jim, and I know that we've talked about how do we, when things are brought to us, tie them back to the strategic plan, and I think you're not disagreeing with a caring community that supports all community members. It's probably the second part that says, well, really, how do we do that? So a caring community that supports all community members and looks for opportunities. I think the strengthened community bonds, I feel like we could adjust. Because what is community bonds, right? Almost, and looks for opportunities to strengthen our community. Or
That may work.
I feel like that maybe is a little clearer. You know, I think community bonds, okay, that's just about, in my opinion, can appear to be just building relationship, where I think what we're saying is strengthening our community is supporting our citizens, even in their struggles of life outside of direct control of government, right? When we look at mental health, how are we helping our residents with mental health?
I guess I thought you originally probably meant bonds in there, that it's inclusive of all those groups, so
Which I think it is, but I guess, Jim, do you feel like that would address it a little more clearly?
What about if we just changed it to a caring city government that supports all community members and looks for opportunities to strengthen community bonds? Because I know where the public was going with
Wait a
this.
minute. that's what's there.
And if that's
No,
what you said,
city government instead of community.
yeah, I'm just saying, what if we just say we're going to be a caring city government that supports all community members? I don't even care if the second half of the sentence is in there, because being a caring government that supports all of its community members or residents or whatever.
I could be with that. Other comments on that suggestion?
Why aren't we an active city government with a wide variety of amenities instead of an active community?
Add it. if
Why
you
aren't
want
we
to.
a connected city government?
Well, I think that the Councilman Russell's point is going back to that opening statement, right? We're going to clarify the government.
But in this particular case, the way it's written, if we like what's there, again, it's technical, but it's one of those things that it's a simple thing that lends importance to it. You know, that was my suggestion. And Beth, could you, I'm sorry, Beth, and I'm talking off mic. Could you repeat what you said? I want to make sure I'm not sure I heard it, and I apologize for that.
Well, I just said that my, sometimes words just escape me. My thought of why I didn't write this, but came up with bonds, is that it would meant inclusiveness, which is what she might be, whoever wrote this, might be including the other things she said were under here, the mental health and the whatever, that we would, that they would be invited to, different community, whatever goes on, and that they wouldn't be excluded from anything, and that makes us caring, and I don't know, so she was trying to remove the word bonds, and I thought maybe it did fit in there. That's all I think I said.
Something that goes directly to that, I had a long conversation with our HR director, Mr. Essex, today, because 7.5 says, model the values being open and friendly to all throughout the city operation. But this was muddled. We didn't understand it, and we talked, and we thought that should be model values of being inclusive to all throughout the whole community. So I'm wondering if the way this is written, if there's a redundancy there, maybe like in the other case.
On which item?
7.5. So under 7.5 says model values of being inclusive.
Yeah, so when I put this, when I put 7.5, which is on page 23, model values of being open and friendly, so that was moved from 5, which again was focused on the transparent government or responsible city government. And I think there are going to be some objectives that are more community outreach oriented and some that are internal operation oriented, right? City government hiring practices, we hold ourselves accountable. So I do think, Jim, that's a good example.
So this is the outreach portion then? Is that
Yes.
If I'm understanding you right. So why don't we say that here?
Yeah, Jim, I think I just want to jump back, because I think, again, there's a kind of easier way to clean. I think if we say a caring government that supports all community members and look for opportunities to strengthen community bonds, I would leave it as the strengthen community bonds. I think if we're going to try to, because I think that leaves it broad enough that we are working with all of those organizations, that we're supporting the community where, and I do agree a little bit in this one that specifying a caring government may be advantageous, even though I don't want it to be repetitive in all of the other objectives, given that this is, as we have said many. I kind of liked having my computer here because I could see you behind me without turning over my shoulder. So
You would say drop the second half of the sentence? Did I hear you, or leave it? I want to
No,
make sure I
leave it,
understand.
just make the
So you're
change to
saying-
government.
a caring
Because I think if
government.
you just add the word government, I think that helps me.
Very good.
From my perspective as a technical, looking at it technically and not being an English person.
So we have an
English
amendment
writing.
to adding a caring government versus a caring community. And with that amendment, any other discussion? All,
I've got a quick question. if you don't mind.
No.
yes,
Just for clarification.
Yes.
If you're going through here in, like on number 5, a caring community, you're changing to a caring government, that's what's being suggested?
correct.
Does that mean that you go back up and you take a look at number 2, which says an active community? You don't like the word community in 5. Does that mean that we're gonna question the active community in item 2? I mean, I don't quite understand the logic.
That's exactly what we've kind of been debating, and we see both sides. I think the reason that I'm comfortable with it being changed from community to government in this one is that supports all community members. So you're still referencing the community members that we're engaging with. In this instance, we're saying we better be the nice ones.
This is kind of the exception to the discussion, I think.
I stand corrected, thank you.
Very good. With that, let's, yes, Beth.
Go ahead.
No,
Take a vote.
Oh, are we voting on that?
we're going to unless you have something else.
No, I have nothing. No, I want to talk about something quick after you vote, before you go on.
Very good. We're going to vote on this with replacing a caring government. All in favor of as it stands on the screen, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. We have one vote against. Motion passes.
All right.
On
Oh,
to
yeah.
page, yes, Beth, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I really hate to lengthen this, but.
No, it's all right. It's already long enough. Christ
I
almighty.
buzzed through that one so fast, on that connected city. And I think Christina said it's been like that forever, and maybe it was, but I actually had to look back at what 3 was talking about. Was it pulled out like that? I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but seriously, just that sentence sounds like a dot-to-dot map, and that we're connected to, like Columbus through 23 and Toledo through 75, and like I said, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but that was what occurred to me, and it's like, what is that? And then, after we voted really quick, Jim said, I don't even know what that means. And I thought, well, I didn't either. I get it when I see the rest of it, it's street maintenance and everything, but I didn't know if I have to look at something else, if there was something, because is there any way we could put what's coming more in that? And if nobody else feels that way, I just
Yes.
throw my thoughts out.
So I did this for us being able to put it up on the screen today and take notes. So, I would just recommend you pull the page apart that we're looking at and then just flip to the objective to provide the context.
I was just kind of thought, golly, it's just a sentence. I didn't get anything out of the way that was written. I did, I understood it once I looked back there, but I don't, just crossed my own, didn't know what anybody else thought of it.
And we're talking about physically connected there, not technically connected. And it's just strictly streets. No, I'm clarifying. I'm not questioning your interpretation of it. So I'm saying that was the point there, right? It was strictly,
Yeah, when you look
Yeah,
at
the objectives are all-
the objectives, continue to improve street maintenance, traffic flow and safety, and it talks about truck routes, snow removal, infrastructure maintenance, providing, looking at a mobile app to help with infrastructure concerns, streetscapes. Then you get into evaluate and identify opportunities to improve bike and pedestrian infrastructure. So it's not just kind of vehicular, but looking at complete streets, safe routes to schools, multi-use path, greenway, university connectivity.
What I liked about Beth, but your comments, is I envision, like, so if we're making a presentation and you don't want to show each action item underneath, or we eliminate all the action items, we do it. Just because we completed all the action items doesn't mean we want the objective to go away. So to your point, I feel that there's value in the objective being clear enough that it's understood as a standalone sentence. Because we've all said the goal is to get rid of the objectives, to complete them, to the tasks underneath the objectives. And if that's the case, it should stand alone and make sense by itself. So there's a lot of validity to your point, because I agree too. We went so fast through that I wasn't able, but I did get the same picture in my head. I pictured
You know,
that
with all
Dots
due,
game.
I appreciate that, but please watch your comments. We did not go fast through this. We did not. Well, you voted, so it must not have been fast enough.
I didn't vote. I didn't say a word. I
Eric,
didn't get
you
an
had your opportunity. You could have
Yeah.
called discussion.
My point
Well,
is,
my
I
point
think
in all
Beth's
this is also
valid.
it is valid, and to keep saying that we're not discussing these things enough bothers me. Yes, you did you ensued, or that we're not taking enough time by saying that we did not discuss this long enough. So I would tell you that at what point in time do we cut this off and make some decisions? So we went through Robert's rules. We took a vote. I think we had plenty of time for discussion. If we want to come back at some point in time, we can always do that, Auditor. But please do not infer that we're not taking enough time to discuss these.
I guess, as a point of order, I thought Beth made a wonderful point. I'm in support of her point, and I made my discussion that if we do complete the tasks, these objectives stand alone. If they are not thoroughly defined, that they may be confusing or not understood by anybody looking at a standalone objective, whether the objective have tests or not. So it's worth consideration, and I think that was wonderful.
Duly noted. And I would suggest that anybody has concerns about these, that we'll have an opportunity again. Please reword them, bring them to the next meeting, and we will discuss them. So, no, and I think a very good point. And if you have a suggested change, I would more than happy to discuss those. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. We're on to page number 4. Mayor.
A thriving business environment that takes care of existing businesses, attracts new businesses, and supports local entrepreneurs and is economically sustainable.
Move to approve.
What's the prior number of that, please?
I think it would be 4 or 5.
Oh, here it is. I found it. It's a thriving business
6.
environment. That's
We have a motion and a second.
I would like to suggest that we consider adding the word promote in front of thriving. I'm not making a motion, I'm suggesting it for the sake of discussion. Promote a thriving business environment. That's our role, is to promote that environment.
Other comments?
We haven't used a verb as the first word for any others. So for consistency's sake, it's probably appropriate we do just this once here, and that's said sarcastically. We have a motion and a second on the current verbiage.
And we're having discussion on that motion.
And I would just, we already had a motion and a second. I would just add in to remember that when we're reading the goals, they go along with, I just turned my page over, the city of government aspires to be. These are the things that we are wanting to be a thriving business community, a connected community. So I think that helps frame it up.
Yeah, and I appreciate that comment because that goes directly to the reason I suggested adding the word promote or any other word that this group might think appropriate, because if it is an objective of the city of Findlay to be a thriving business, that's fine if it's the objective, but we are not a thriving business environment. It's our objective to promote a thriving business environment or encourage or support or fund. I think this is a case where the objective warrants more specificity. If it's standing alone and we just say a thriving business environment that takes care of existing businesses, your city of Findlay government, what a thriving business environment?
No, the city of Findlay government aspires to be a thriving business environment. That is how it flows. So
I don't want this to sound wrong. That doesn't make sense to me in the sense that the city government doesn't strive to be a thriving business environment. We support it. It's separate from us. The business environment is separate from the government. Or are we talking about the city government is we want a thriving business, we want a thriving environment within the business of city government. Those are two different things.
How is a city government an attractive place to live?
I would put in the word, we want to create an attractive place to live, but it's part of what we do.
I thought it was my understanding that these were all preceded by the city of Findlay is.
I don't know. We haven't seen that. We were going to have planning next do that
No,
draft.
I sent that out multiple weeks ago.
Well, did you?
Yes.
How does that read? Do we have it in this document? Because I don't have it in front of me.
Is this the one?
Do you know what page it's on? Excellent.
This is the-
So the city of Findlay government aspires to be a thriving business environment. So we would aspire to be, so it'd be a government that supports a thriving business environment. Follow where I'm going? In other words, there's a standalone with the qualifier there. And maybe Mr. Russell's right, even though he was being sarcastic, that this is the one place where you need, I don't know, would you say an adjective or a verb or whatever?
I know, okay. Yeah. So I guess I would just call question. Jim, I understand what you're saying in, government is promoting a thriving business environment, but I think with the overall structure, city of government is creating a strategic plan that is creating a safe community, that is creating a thriving business environment, that
Sounds
is
good.
creating a connected community. So I think we
Yeah.
can maybe work with planning next if we want specific language in there that is not adequately represented in the framework document that they are already providing. But I think I'm good with it as it stands.
Well, yeah, and it's the pleasure of the committee. I just bring it up because
No,
it's a
good.
standalone, and to Beth's point earlier, certain objectives as standalones won't make sense without things under them.
Sounds good. All right. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right. How'd I get up there? Oh, because we went back to the connected. All right. The next one, a safe community. That's one that's pretty easy to read. Anybody come up with any creative language we wanted added to that one? I felt like it was pretty straightforward. If not, I will make a motion to approve a safe community as the goal language. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I think it should be built out and suggest that we build it out offline and present it at our next meeting.
Is that in a form of a motion to table the vote on a safe community?
Well, it's in discussion. I mean, that's just.
Technically, there's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, and we're in this discussion of it, and so that's my opinion. If people nod and say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, then yeah, I would make it in a motion, but I would.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I'd like that you've said that, Mr. Russell, in the sense that if the objective itself is fleshed out as to what we mean by that. In other words, safe is perspective. What is safe?
And hopefully, I would like to have planning next, maybe look at this one on how they have adopted it from, because I looked at some of their other ones and I couldn't find something that I really loved.
If they give you more than 6 minutes, I think that's a good idea.
I'll tell them they have 10 and to bill you directly, Jim. All right. I will withdraw my motion. And then we're kosher. Yeah. Okay. I know a number of folks had to leave, and since our chairman had to split, unless there is anything dire that we need to discuss, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Before anybody seconds that, please note that I really think, and I'm, hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn here, that we need to keep the momentum. I think there's a lot more productive discussion when we keep our meetings closer together. So as we reach out to try to schedule meetings, please do your best to accommodate. I'm sure myself and Jim will work to try to find a time to schedule these folks to come in, but watch your emails intently when we reach out to try to get some time on your schedules.
And I think it encouraged people to suggest other groups. Yeah, because we only have right now 6 or 8.
Yeah.
Maybe I suggested if we go through that, putting the schedule together,
Mm-hmm.
that we meet once a week, every other week, at a specific time, so we can get on our calendars and nothing will interfere with that, and let everybody know what's going on. And it's a date and a time that first and third.
I know, we keep switching it up to accommodate planning next or us and the holidays. So yes, we will try to do our best to get a consistent meeting time for the next couple of meetings. Wonderful. Good work, team. I really appreciate everybody's conversation and progress. We're getting closer, so thank you. Yes, continue to keep that document. We'll send out probably some notes, but continue to plan to work off of that document.
I sure appreciate the discussion around the
Do
businesses
we need a
coming in.
second to close the meeting? I don't think so. Thanks.